So I'm Hugo Gorringe. I'm based here at the University of Edinburgh, and I'm here just chairing this panel and making sure that people vaguely keep to time. What we're discussing now is the situation as pertains in India. Now, the role of universities in Indian society in general, the ability of academic staff to speak out on an array of issues, in particular, has become a concern in the country. Now, India does have a free press. Democratic elections are the norm. But despite this, free speech is circumscribed and is being circumscribed in a range of different ways, particularly to conform to cultural and religious values and attitudes. This is seen in the fact that things like movies are routinely censored and edited. I don't know if any of you saw the James Bond film Spectre, but the kissing in that was deemed to be too excessive for the censors in India, and so that was removed. But more seriously, for the sorts of things we're considering, the documentary film India's Daughter, which dealt with the Delhi rape case of 2012, was banned in the country and wasn't allowed to be aired. And so there's a closing down of discussion and debate. Writing for Open Democracy following recent controversies, Mohan Datta argued there is now a concerted effort to delegitimize university and to undermine spaces of thinking in the country. And it's this issue and these debates that our panel are going to deal with today. We have here Nandini Sundar, Professor of Sociology at the Delhi School of Economics, who's traveled a very long way to be with us, and we're delighted to have you here. She has many publications, but her book, The Burning Forest, India's War in Basra, has just been published by Juggernaut Press. She's been awarded the Emphasis Prize for Social Sciences, the Esther Boserup Prize for Development Research, and in the best traditions of public intellectuals, her writings are available at nandinisundar.blogspot, a treasure trove of resources if any of you wish to chase them up. We then have Dr. Papia Sengupta, who's an assistant professor of politics at Jawaharlal Nehru University, one of the leading institutions in India, which is also based in Delhi, has been at the center of many of the controversies which are ongoing in the country. She's currently here in Edinburgh as an IASH SSPS fellow, so somebody who we can engage with over a slightly longer period of time as well. She's published widely on issues related to multicultural studies, minority rights, language, diversity, and federal governance. Has recently edited a special issue on culture and the law, and her first book, entitled Languages in India, Identity, Diversity, and Institutions, is coming out with Cambridge University Press very soon. So these two will talk for 15-20 minutes, give us an overview of what's happening, and then Roger will chip in, act as commentator, and sort of reflect on some of these issues and raise issues. Roger Jeffery, as most of you know, Professor of Sociology of South Asia here at the University of Edinburgh, research covering a wide range of things from public health policy, social demography, pharmaceuticals regulation, demography. Has, again, a whole host of publications, has recently edited From the Margins to the Mainstream with Suryakant Wagmore and myself, getting a plug in there, and Development, Failure and Identity Politics in Uttar Pradesh with Craig Jeffery and Jens Lersch, author and co-author of numerous other books, including Education, Masculinities and Employment in North India. So put together, we have a wonderful panel, eminently qualified to talk about these issues. Nandini is going to go first. It's going to start off by placing things in a wider context. Then Papia is going to talk more about the issues in JNU before Roger takes over in conclusion.
So, so I just want to say how good it was to hear from the Turkish academics and how sadly we know very little about what's happening in Turkey, in India, and so this has been a great opportunity. And it's in a way been somewhat cheering because the situation seems to be much worse in Turkey, because to have 1,000 academics under attack would, I think, not, we're not still at that situation in India. So it's bad, but so what we see, I think, right now in India is two things. One is the kind of closure of the mind and the securitization of a lot of the discussion around what can be said, what cannot be said. And I just want to quote here from Huysman's work on security and how security labeling has a performative function, and I just want to use that to set the tone for what I'm going to say, and I'm quoting, "The signifier security does not describe social relations, but changes them into security relations." And really that's what we see is happening through the kind of performative labeling of everything as a security issue. The threat in India is not so much from law or administrative action, though that does happen, but from extra-constitutional vigilante groups which are supported by the state. So it's really the kind of uncertainty of knowing whether and when you will be attacked by the BJP student wing, the ABVP, or by any one of the other multiple groups that they support. So in terms of laws, there are two kinds of laws which have been used against both faculty, students, activists, other cultural personalities, etc. One is sedition, which has been extremely widely used recently, and most famously in the academic context has been used against JNU students, and I think Papia will talk about that. And the other is Section 153A of the Indian Penal Code, which is promoting enmity between different groups on grounds of religion, race, etc. Right? And doing acts prejudicial to the maintenance of harmony. So, of course, people from the right wing are never charged with doing any acts which are prejudicial to the maintenance of harmony, but if you object to anything or you show Hindu goddesses in whatever the Hindu right thinks is a bad light, then you could be accused of doing acts prejudicial to the maintenance of harmony. So, as you know, we have this right-wing authoritarian government which was elected in 2014. And since then it's not as if everything started in 2014. There were several actions which took place even earlier by the BJP's fronts, but obviously the situation has become much worse now because they get state support. So one of the first major incidents which took place three major incidents which took place coming close on the heels of one another were the killing of three well-known, in their own local areas, rationalist thinkers. One was Dabholkar, so Dabholkar was not an academic, but he was one of the founders of a rationalist association in Maharashtra and had been working for an anti-superstition bill, and he was killed while walking in broad daylight. The second was Govind Pansare, who was a communist leader, again a rationalist. And it's interesting how actually when they were killed, there was some coverage of the number of rationalist groups there are in India, the kind of people who actually, get out there and show the kind of fraud that various godmen perpetrate, do little tricks which reveal how these so-called miracles are not really miracles but are simply magic, or a variety of other things. And many of them have actually been physically attacked in the past and been killed. But this was the first time that there were such major mass, killings of well-known rationalists. And the third was of Kannada scholar Kalburgi, M.M. Kalburgi, who was also Vice Chancellor of Hampi University at one point. And Kalburgi is a Vachana scholar. Now, the Vachanas were Lingayat texts which developed in the, 15th to 17th century, which were at that time taking on the Vedas, which were the sort of Hindu scriptures, challenging them, promoting intercaste marriages, rationalism, etc. And then they were under attack, of course, by the Brahminical forces. And of late, this Lingayat sect, which grew out of this rationalist movement, has itself become very powerful and closed, etc. And Kalburgi was writing about the founders of he himself is a Lingayat, writing about the foundations of the sect, and it's just a quote from one of the Vachana poets. And this is from Hemagala Hampa, who was a 17th century Vachana poet. "Can a log which chisel and hammer cannot split be split with axe and sickle? would a mind which, after being chiseled with the nectar of elders' vachanas, yield to the axe and sickle of the Veda and Agama? It will not. Right? So there's a long historical tradition of resistance to Brahminical ideology, and Kalburgi was a scholar in that tradition. And he, again, was killed by people coming to his house and shooting him when he's opened the door. So these particular sequence of killings generated a lot of anxiety among various writers who began to return their state awards. And there was a huge movement of writers returning all their Sahitya Academy awards and other Padma Bhushans and various other state awards, which was again met with counter protests by some of the state-sponsored academics, of which there are a very few and not many are well regarded, but in any case. So for every protest by people demanding freedom of expression, there are these other people who are saying that that they are anti-national. Another major incident that happened was an attack. So what's really important is that when it comes to regional scholars writing in their own languages, they are much more vulnerable than people living in metropoles like Delhi or Bombay, etc. And because in a sense their works have much wider reach. So much as we would like to think that our position is actually because we belong to Delhi University or JNU, etc., we're actually less of a threat to the state where it matters than regional scholars. The other major attack on a regional scholar was on a poet called Perumal Murugan, who is a professor of Tamil at the Government Arts College, Namakkal, whose book, One Part Woman, which is about a particular practice where a woman where women conceive children through other people, anyways, it was attacked by local Tamil organization, and the district administration actually brokered a peace deal whereby he agreed not to write anymore, to delete the sections from his novel which were controversial, etc. And then he said, the poet Perumal Murugan is now committing suicide. I will not write anymore. I'm dead as a scholar. And a High Court judgment in July 2015 actually said, kind of resuscitated him as a poet and said, he must write, and it was illegal to have the administration broker this peace deal, etc. And since then, he's been publishing again. As Hugo said, there's a huge conflation of Hindutva, which is not Hinduism, but a sort of form of the state's version of Hinduism, which is about, even within Hinduism, doing away with a lot of the diversity, enshrining only certain kinds of things which can be said. And in the name of Hinduism, there have been several attacks on a variety of different cultural expressions. So in the last month, for instance, there's been an attack on the Indian People's Theatre Association. They had a big conference in Indore, which the ABVP, it wasn't the ABVP there, it was one of the other groups which just sort of invaded the stage and pushed everybody off the stage. A Pakistani film, Jago Hua Savera, which is an old classic, which actually has Bangladeshi, Pakistani and Indian collaboration, was dropped from a film festival recently. There's been an attack on the CPI leader, Manish Kunjam, for forwarding a WhatsApp message on one of the Hindu goddesses. Now, in the metropoles, in the various national universities, or what are called central universities, the attacks have been primarily on students. So in a way, the people who have been at the forefront of defending the right to academic freedom have not been faculty, but have been students, particularly left student unions. So for instance, in 2015, the students of the Film and Television Institute held a 139-day strike, demanding a change in this right-wing director who was being imposed on them, who had absolutely no qualifications. A Dalit student in Hyderabad Central University committed suicide, which became a big issue because he was externed along with others from the hostel because there was some kind of fracas between the ABVP, which is the BJP student wing, and these Dalit students. There have been what Papia will talk about, the attacks on the JNU students, which has become actually a big thing because they've been attacked, and anybody who has anything to do with JNU has been attacked. So auto drivers will not take people to JNU anymore because it's seen as an anti-national space. The Ambedkar Periyar, which is a Dalit student group, was banned, de-recognized in IIT Madras for a few months for being anti-Modi. Beef festivals organized by students at Osmania University have been banned. So, across the country, various campuses, there have been incidents. And, the JNU thing has become sort of so symbolic of left-wing politics that anybody who's been, as I said, anything to do with JNU has been attacked. So, for instance, an article written by a JNU, written by a Delhi University professor about one of the JNU students was liked on Facebook by a sociologist at Lucknow University, and he was then attacked by the ABVP. So, it's WhatsApp posts, Facebook likes, all of these have suddenly become really dangerous, and you never know what is going to kind of invite attention from the student wing. Now, in the last month, again, we've had, because of a terrorist strike on one of the army outposts in Uri, we've had 17 soldiers were killed, and as usual now, since Kargil, since 1999, we've had sort of the Americanization of our soldiers' deaths, and so they're now routinely called martyrs. Their flag-draped coffins are sent home to their various hometowns. So across the country, then this is used as an occasion to whip up kind of nationalist fervor, and anything that is seen as, so now not only is there Hindutva as the defining element of the nation, but also security as represented by soldiers. So anything that is seen as anti-military, anti-police is seen as anti-national. So, for instance, there's been this huge outcry about by one of our political parties, come vigilante groups, the MNS, which threatened to disrupt the release of a film by one of India's most well-known film producers, Karan Johar, because it starred a Pakistani actor, Fawad Khan, who actually is a huge heartthrob among, Indian women at large. So, so because this film has Fawad Khan, they threatened to, disrupt the screening, and Karan Johar was made to pay 5 crores to the Army Welfare Fund as penance for having starred Fawad Khan. And in terms of academic freedom, what this translates into is, or what this has immediately translated into is an attack on the English department of Haryana Central University, which staged a play by a very well-known Bengali writer, Mahashweta Devi, who died recently. So they held a kind of day-long memorial event in her honor. And they staged one of her plays called Draupadi, which was written in the 70s in the context of police atrocities on Adivasis, indigenous people, for being part of the Naxalite movement. So in this film, in this play, Draupadi, the woman, the Santhal Adivasi woman, is raped and tortured by the police all night, and so in the morning, her sort of bleeding body is naked, and she sort of walks towards the security, towards the police, saying, "Come on, counter me if you can." And then the police fall silent and scared, because faced with the power of this woman who's naked and unafraid, and they really have nothing to say. So this play has been staged before in Manipur, which is one of the worst conflict-affected areas of India. It's been well known, but when it was performed recently at Haryana Central University, the ABVP and Haryana is a place which supplies a lot of the Jawans, the soldiers, to the army. So they got all the villagers in the neighboring villages surrounding the campus to surround the campus and protest against this anti-national English department, and in particular this one faculty member, Sneh Sata, who has now been boycotted by the rest of the university. So, and there's an inquiry against her. So just 2 minutes, yeah? Is that, yeah? Okay, so just in terms of what is the kind of context which enables this kind of silencing. We hear about incidents from the central universities, which are public universities, but we actually don't know the extent of silencing because about 60% or over of the affiliated colleges in the country are actually run by private management. So actually they can't say anything at all. And so, there's no question of being attacked for saying anything because they'll be sacked if they say anything. So there is absolutely very little that goes on. And their faculties are paid less than those in central government universities, etc. There's an emphasis on science and professional courses, and you see a clear divide between the kind of faculty and this is something that I'd like to ask the Turkish academics as well, whether most of the people who signed the 1,000 people who signed the petition were from the social sciences or whether they spanned science and other disciplines as well, because in India, clearly there is a distinction between the humanities and social sciences who are much more vocal and therefore much more under attack. In terms of academic culture, what really enables the silencing is, one is the privatization of the university system, the centralization under the UGC, which is the University Grants Commission, which kind of dictates everything, and at a larger level, hiring structures. So the sort of feudalism at a basic level, which enables people to hire their own students, as well as the fact that the government can actually control who gets hired to government universities through the vice chancellors and through various other mechanisms that they have, which means that increasingly our universities are going to be packed with right-wing scholars. So there isn't going to be much protest in future because they're going to completely agree with the government. And academics are also, famously, I think, supine because they're subject to pressures like, leave and various other things, promotions, etc. And there's an enormous degree of self-censorship by heads of departments, university admin. And we see this all the time. We want to show a film on Kashmir. People sort of say, no, it's too dangerous because our department has also been attacked by, our department is one of the most liberal probably in the university. And when we show films on Kashmir, we show them without advertising them in rooms, and we kind of patrol outside to make sure that, nobody comes, because there have been cases in the past where we've actually been surrounded and had to garrison ourselves in. In terms of student politics, again, while there has been, as I said, the students have been at the forefront of protesting about freedom, in the country as a whole, student politics is basically dominated by the student wings of national political parties who see it as a way of getting a position within their national parties. And in Delhi University, student volunteers of the two mainstream political parties, the AVBP and the NSUI, are actually paid to canvass. So there is nothing very studenty about it. It's completely run by money. And there's a great deal of ethnicization of student politics. And really, it's been hard, even without the whole national security impetus, to develop democratic politics in the national central universities. And I'd just like to end with this one. Can we just see that? Okay. So I've been active in human rights work in the central state of Chhattisgarh, and I haven't really faced any kind of discrimination or any problems within my university, but in the region, like 3-4 days ago, actually, the police burnt effigies of all of us because as part of this court case that I filed in the Supreme Court, 7 policemen were charge sheeted by the Central Bureau of Investigation. So that was actually quite an important legal victory that we had. And so therefore, they've been actually attacking us on the ground. So, but I must emphasize that in my university in Delhi, I have not faced any kind of problem with regard to my political work. So in that sense, and this is work that takes on the central government quite directly. So it's been, I think it would be unfair to say that academic freedom in that sense has been compromised. Thanks. Sorry? Okay, hello?
Could be mute. No, it's right. You have it?
Yes, I think, yes. Right. Good afternoon, all of you, and thanks for coming, and a big thanks to Sophia for inviting me. It's not working?
Maybe it's muted. Can you try now?
Okay, all right. Yeah, a big thanks to Sophia for inviting me. Yeah, so what, Nandini has actually given a very broader picture of India and academic freedom, and I think, she has really done a wonderful job with that. I will be more focused only on JNU. Now, I'll just tell you that JNU is very close to my heart. I have been a student there, and I returned after nearly 15 years to teach there. And so, it's a very long-drawn relationship, and I think what I am today, it's because of the university I went to. Before I start my presentation, I would just like to say that, when this particular university, Jawaharlal Nehru University, was thought of, the first bill, which was introduced in the parliament in 1965, when the education minister, M.C. Chagla, said that this is not going to be another university. It's, he said that one thing that this university should ensure was to keep noble ideas in mind and provide accessibility to students from weaker sections of the society. And even if you go to the website of the JNU University, that's jnu.ac.in, the vision of JNU is that ideas are a field for adventure, experimentation, and unceasing quest and diversity of opinions, which is its chief premise. So these are the ethos and values on which the university, I have been a student and now a faculty, works on. And I'm going to talk about the events which took place in the very beginning of the year, specifically in the month of February. But before that, what instigated and why we got the kind of reaction we had, which we never thought we are going to get. So. Okay. Sorry. Okay, this is the university, and this is actually, the statue of Jawaharlal Nehru, and this is one of the pictures. All the pictures are there in, are there in standwithjnu.org, which we have, So it's a very beautiful campus. It's spread around 1,000 acres, and we take a very, very small student's fee from the students. It's actually as less as £2 for the entire semester.
You have to aim at the computer.
Okay. Okay, these are some of the graffitis, and they are not uncommon. Every time you enter JNU, and it has been like this for the past 40 years, whenever you enter JNU, you see these kind of graffitis everywhere, from the canteen to the School of Social Sciences, of course, but everywhere you can see these kind of posters. And this is just a collage which I have made, but I'll just show you. So we have been, we have students talking about freedom, not only in Kashmir, but they talk about voicing freedom for women from, away from patriarchy. So you have such graffitis and posters in the university. So JNU students are very, very vocal about all kinds of issues. It's not only those which affect them, but they feel that they are very much the microcosm of the country and the world, and they do voice their opinions very, very strongly. This is of right of workers, farmers, and artists, and this particular graffiti talks about freedom of creativity, freedom of education, academic freedom. This is against the scams and corruption. So, it's not only that JNU or the students have been talking about this only with the coming up of right-wing government. It has been happening for a very, very long time. And we did face a lot of resistance also, during the emergency. And JNU, which was established in the name of Jawaharlal Nehru, the father of Indira Gandhi,
who was responsible for the emergency in 1975 in India, the national emergency. And the students of that university actually boycotted even her from entering the university. And she was only allowed to enter the university on the condition that she would hear a petition from the students against what all she has done. And when Mrs. Gandhi came to the university, she actually sat down and the students read a complete petition of all the misdeeds and why they are so against her. Okay, this is against the imposition of army in Manipur. So, JNU students have been very vocal about the army imposition in Manipur, in other places in Northeast, also in Kashmir. They speak very freely about Palestine, about issues of minorities, Adivasis, indigenous, women. And it's not that, I don't think you can restrict thoughts, they are without any boundaries. So the students of my university, when I was a student, yes, and now as a faculty also, we have the space. The best thing, and I think the unique thing about JNU is that you can sit with colleagues, even who do not have any left leanings, but who are center or right to the center, but you are given the space to voice, and with the kind of respect you deserve. So I think that is something which maybe the present government has been very threatened with us. I'm sorry about this. Okay, this is about freedom in Manipur, in Assam, in Kashmir, in Palestine. And I would just like to say, before going to the next, next slide, that in JNU, we do have cultural festivals. Hindu cultural festivals take place. But along with those festivals of Hindu cultures, like, let's say the Kali Puja, Kali is a goddess, it's a goddess of power according to the Hindu religion. We also have something known as Mahishasur Puja. Like it's, according to the Hindu mythology, it is that, the goddesses kill the demon. But there are groups of students who worship the demon, because it's also a kind of division between the Aryans and the Dravidians. So you have all these kinds going on, and it's not restrictive. We have not seen the kind of backlash which we saw last year. Another interesting thing is that although students, we have a very different kind of election than what Nandini mentioned in Delhi University. It's not that Students' Union of JNU is not backed by the national political parties, but we have different also different organizations like ISA, Free Thinkers, who are not affiliated to any political party. So, there is not money and booze involved. It's so much involved, at least, and we don't have any posters which are published and printed and, big things. So, it's about making your own posters, painting them yourself. So the students and the, are involved. Of course, as a faculty, we don't get involved directly with the students' election. But when I was a student, yes, you had the right to, make posters for whosoever you wanted to. It was never that being an, you can only do an SFI and not the ISA. So, there are lots of overlappings, and, we do have all that. So what happened in JNU in February? What happened in JNU in February is that, there was this particular program, a theater, a play which was staged, A City Without a Post Office, and one of my colleagues, we had this kind of a protocol or a bureaucratic system that, if you need to, hire a place within the university, you need a signature of a professor. So one of our students came and, she just said that, we are going to have this play, and one of my colleagues, she signed it. And we never ask our students what exactly it is they are going to show, because you're free to show whatever you want to. So she just signed it, and we were not even aware about what exactly it's going to be shown. We just knew about after 2 days that there is problem in JNU, and this is very much when we were inside JNU. I was taking my classes. That it was like it became a very big issue. Students have been arrested. Why arrested? We were not aware. And it was, so what I'm trying to say is within the faculty, even when I was inside the campus, we were not aware of what exactly has happened a night before. It was very, very calm and peaceful inside at that time. But when this person, it essentially catered down to this, that this particular, the screening of this show was banned, or it was actually hampered by the right-wing group. And with technology, you can really use so many things. So somebody actually videoed the entire thing, saying that somebody had raised slogans of Kashmiri Azadi, okay, freedom for Kashmir. Okay, and it's true that we do have students and faculty who feel that freedom. It is not only that we were fighting against the colonial colonialism 50 years back, but we should give freedom of space, freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom from death and curfew and all this, to people who are there within our country as well as outside. So it was said that, there were these students, some few students, who have raised anti-India slogans because they were talking about freedom and azadi for Kashmir. And that is how it was portrayed. We were not even aware whether it actually happened or not. And the Students' Union President, Kanhaiya Kumar, who was a student of mine, he was arrested on charges of sedition. And he, along with another student, Rama Naga, who is also a student doing MPhil in my center, both of them, along with Umar Khalid, who has been a student when I was teaching in University of Delhi. He was a student, who did history and political science as a subsidiary in Kirodimal College under me. So all these students, along with many other students, about 15 of them were arrested on charges of sedition. And when they were charged of sedition, we really did not know as faculty what exactly has happened. But I remember the day very well. I was about to enter the university and I go very early. So I reach at about 8:30. It was absolutely peaceful and calm. And when I started taking my lecture, I started getting news that, there is a lot of things happening in JNU. Why? Because the gate has been sealed and, there is military all over. And what has happened is actually, if you can see the next, the second picture on that side, the door was closed, and what we had were people, standing outside with Indian national flag, shouting that you are anti-nationals, you produce anti-nationals in this university. So these are people outside the gate of the university. And then they said that you are anti-India, so you go to Pakistan. So, so that's how the entire thing boiled down to, and, the media played it. There were many channels showing that, the faculty of JNU is very, very, not only left-oriented and with left leanings, but they speak on everything. They are Pakistani spies. They are agents of, Pakistan. They are Islamic agents. They are atheists. They do not believe in religion. They are illegal, immoral. So, they should be punished. This is the Students' Union leader, Kanhaiya, and this I took from the Telegraph, which says, "We don't want freedom from India, my brothers, we want freedom in India." And his speech is also there. If I have time, I'll show you, and it became a kind of a viral. Now, what I'm trying to show is that it was nothing to do with left as such, in my opinion. It was people who, when I saw the number of students coming into these gatherings, most of them were not party members, or they were affiliated to the SFI, that is the Students' Federation of India, or to the ultra-left or radical left organizations. They were coming because they felt that what was done to their colleagues, their fellows, their classmates was absolutely wrong. And let me tell you, these are some of the very bright students of the university. They have won scholarships. JNU is very well known, to have, we have an entrance exam where we normally, for political science, I know the numbers, we have about 20,000 people sitting for the entrance examinations, and we just have 80 seats, and which is including the general category, which is 40 of them, it's essentially 50% is general, and rest 50 is, comes through a reserved quota. Another important thing about JNU is that apart from following the national quota or the reservation system, JNU's also had this feeling that, there are certain regions in India which are very backward. So we have a rotating quota. So in some, every year the quota rotates, apart from the national level, that some years we will have more students from northeast. Some years it will be Orissa, the indigenous belts of Orissa. Also, we give something what is called disadvantage points. So if you have done your schooling from a very backward area, you get 10 or 15 more points, because it's very difficult for you to compete with somebody, who has actually, studied in a public or a English school in center. Excuse me, yeah. Okay, this is, this is one of the nationalist lectures. We started with these nationalist lectures talking on nationalism and varieties of nationalism. And we believe that, it was about belonging to the nation can be, but it has very different perspectives, how you belong to a nation, and you cannot just impose one particular way of belonging. So this is in the daytime. This is at night, so you see how many students, and not all of them are from left. We were banned to use microphones after this, so we started just speaking, with such big audiences without the microphone. This is, when the students were jailed. This is this particular place, this administrative block, which we used to call as Pink Palace, because the vice chancellor sits there. So, he's like the king sitting there now. But this is also known as Azadi Chowk, or the Freedom Circle, or the Freedom Square. And, so the students used to put this, to the jailed with love, because these students were jailed. Change it, please. Thank you. The teachers also protested against government's high-handedness, so it was not as if the faculty was not involved. In fact, Kanhaiya's bail was given by, by his own warden, another teacher. And now, what is very scary in JNU is that, our administration actually keeps a surveillance on what you are teaching. So we have till now stopped CCTVs inside the classrooms and the corridors. But what you teach at times, it's some of your right-wing students or somebody just passes on, and with WhatsApp and whatnot, you get, so, when you screen a film, it becomes very difficult. But till now, we have been doing it. So, if we have right-wing, we also have other free thinkers who would just like to do what they want to do and would like to show. So we do have that free space. Two more, I think. This is about democracy and dissent, and how when dissent becomes sedition. So we did, although there was a lot of anti-JNU feeling around, but we did have people, in Delhi and, who stood with us, also people from across the globe, who wrote to us mails and, supporting us, from Chomsky to many other scholars. And we have developed this website known as standwithjnu.org, where you can see everything. In the Facebook page is #standwithjnu, #weareJNU, and you get to know about everything that is happening in JNU. This was imposed on us, but I don't know why it was, because we already had the national flag. The education minister and the prime minister thought that, having a national flag on top and singing the national anthem is like a punishment for us, which it wasn't. And so in this particular picture, you see the national flag very visible. So, they said that, you are to be, they say it's like, you have to be purified. So you have to be purified into nationalistic thinking. So there was a particular day in last, I think, 3 months back, where it was mandatory for all of us to stand and sing the national anthem and, to respect and pay our homage to the national flag, which I don't think none of us would have, objected to. We were not going against the country. We were just going against this kind of high-handedness. These are other pictures of, how the students said that, stop hunting students. Because even now when I speak, one of our students, Najib, has gone missing from the hostel. And, people are very scared that, he might not return. His parents, his mother is very scared. And also Najib belonging to a Muslim minority, so we are very scared for his well-being. So I think, these are just my personal experiences of what I witnessed in my university. And I think, together we should fight for freedom of expression and speech. Universities are a microcosm of the diversities of human world, free space to voice and listen to differing opinions, debate and discuss all issues with respect, dignity, where individual freedom is guarded against political imposition on grounds of morality. And secularism for us is not against religion, but debating religion to make it more inclusive. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think those two presentations have given a very clear idea of the kinds of things going on in India, and I'm very pleased to have been here and to be able to listen to them. I just have one slight disagreement with Nandini when she says that the situation in India is not as bad as it is in Turkey, but as always, one's reminded of that very prescient saying that when they came for the Unionists, I didn't object because I wasn't a unionist, and then eventually they came for me. So one wonders about the slippery slope. And obviously in India, from what Nandini was saying, the attacks on the vulnerable groups, those in small private universities or in regional universities where the power of the press is not so obvious, it's very worrying to hear how easy it is for voices to be silenced in those kinds of settings. I just want to make 2 or 3 points and then open it up for discussion. The first is, I think, the role of international support. So one of the things, I was in JNU in February at the time, and we organized 2 events. We had organized a long time in advance, 2 events. One involving PhD student presentations within the Center for Social Medicine and Community Health, one of those. And it was very unsure whether we should go ahead because there was a student strike, not surprisingly. But in consultation with the faculty, we did go ahead, and some students who might have benefited, might have enjoyed coming, didn't come as a sign of solidarity with the students. But the second was a meeting of Leverhulme network hosted by Wilfried Svendon from this university. And I think what's important about this was the coming and going about whether we should go ahead. And the coming and going wasn't from the Indian side very much, it was from the University of Edinburgh. And the University of Edinburgh is becoming increasingly risk averse. And they saw the possibility that some of their staff might be involved in some way or other in these events in JNU as being a threat to its standing in the world, or possibly even opening it up to suing by those members of staff because the university hadn't taken an adequate care of them. And I think that's one of the things that worries me considerably, that what's going on, what we were under pressure not to do was to stand in solidarity with JNU faculty and staff, not because there was any formal objection to the ideals of those faculty and staff, but for managerial reasons, for this risk aversion. And I think that was hinted at in Nandini's talk, and I think it's very true in this part of the world as well. The increasing controls over university faculty, to a lesser extent perhaps here students, not in the name of curtailing academic freedom, but in the name of ensuring value for money, that we deliver what the government pays us to deliver, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the things I would highlight, and it's clear, I talked to Papia in advance, that some of these processes are going on in India as well. So I think what we can do, and what I felt we were doing, was to support those faculty and students in whatever way we can. And I hope that foreign signatures, foreign support has been valuable. But of course, that foreign support is only to those parts of the system that are visible. And Nandini has made clear what's going on in the invisible parts is perhaps much more significant. The last thing I just want to say, on the basis of my visit and those of others, Sophia was there and so on, was just how impressive JNU's response to these events was. So there was clear involvement of faculty across the university, there were marches within the university, marches outside the university, and there was this, I think, incredibly immense, really very, very impressive response of these nationalist lectures on nationalism, which, as you saw from Papia's slides, were hugely well supported, were hugely democratic in their format, involved members of faculty standing up, talking about what they meant by nationalism over a range of topics. I only watched a couple of these, but they were of exceptionally high intellectual standard. They engaged the students. There was probably more silence than you get in your normal lectures. And I think that's what I would like to see most highlighted from this experience, the possibility of faculty standing with students, standing up, taking innovative responses to show the universities as a space where speech is valued, freedom of that speech is significant, is incredibly essential. It's essential to be able to do that kind of thing. And I think JNU in particular showed very successfully how that can be done. That's it.
So, any questions? And again, for purposes of recording, please don't speak until you get the mic.
Hello. It's fine. Okay. Yeah. So I have, I guess, a few problems here. You see, my work is with Kashmir activists, and something that I have noticed. Well, first of all, I agree with Roger Jeffery that I think that there isn't necessarily. It's not that the situation is any worse or better in Turkey or in India or in any other locations where this is a real issue, where there's sort of knee-jerk reaction to call everyone who's opposed to the line of thinking to be considered as some kind of a terrorist or anti-nationalist. For example, in Kashmir University, it's not like they can just come out and say, like, hey, I am pro-Kashmir freedom, or I just actually want to talk about it a little bit. There's a lot of self-censoring involved between journalists and academics, I think, in the Kashmir University. One of the problems that I think I've had with the dialogue, and that I'm really interested in understanding from academics in India, is how the dialogue that you hear about, the really horrible thing, the horrifying things that are happening to some of the Kashmiri protesters, many of them, not violent at all, and they have these, pellet guns that are blinding people, and people are, coming out into the streets, and some of them have stones, but that's about it. And, my understanding is that there seems to be, it comes across, and I'm just being frank here, it comes across as a lack of apathy for the Kashmiris who are human rights activists. And, right now, there's a march of Kashmiri activists in Edinburgh to the Indian consulate. And it seems like there's not this understanding or mutual understanding or connections between, the activists and what they're saying and the academics. Sorry, I'm going to promise I'll wrap it up. Just one example that I noticed in a Twitter feed, because I use kind of the social media research. They had all this, I'll stand with solidarity with JNU, and they're pro-academic freedom, and that's grand. But you didn't hear anything else about Kashmir. It was like, it turned from being, something that we should talk about to something that we should ignore because it's more polite to talk about academic freedoms. So I'm sorry that it wasn't really well thought out of a comment or response, but I guess the response is, if you could address, where is this where are we missing this work with actual activists and academics?
Thank you. Any other questions? I think we gather a few questions.
Mine is not a question, but hearing your comments, and I don't know much about the Indian case, so I just want to say that something quite similar is happening in Turkey, or the wider reaction to this petition crisis that we are facing, that the whole world started talking about academics at risk, but the petition itself was about state violence against Kurds, and that sort of got forgotten along the way. And yes, I mean, we need to talk about academics and our freedoms and our sort of security and so on and so forth, but it was a much larger issue which got forgotten in a sense. So I just wanted to sort of say that in Turkey, very similar something is happening. So.
Thanks for his wonderful accounts. It's a question for Papia. In your talk, you kept stressing that the people gathering and the activities undertaken was not just the left. You repeated a number of times, this was not just the left parties, this was not just leftist or left-wing. And so there seems to be some anxiety on your part to make sure that that's differentiated. So I'd like to know from you, A, why you do that, but also perhaps to parse for us what the histories of the left are within these spaces of protest and resistance within JNU, and why you make that distinction.
Maybe one more.
Hello, my name is Daniel Hignett. I would just like to pick up on a point that Jeffrey... All right, sorry. I'd like to ask Jeffrey, I was a bit taken aback by the statement that you made about not affiliating with JNU because of economic reasons pressured by the government as opposed to academic. And I don't see how there is a difference there, because there are many calls within the Edinburgh University for divestment, and that is an intellectual issue, not just an economic one.
Thank you. I'll just add one question into that mix. So a lot of focus on activism. Actually, one of the things that's being shut down in India is what you're allowed to teach and what books you're allowed to use. So famously, Ramanujan's article has been taken off the curriculum in many places. Wendy Doniger's book on Hinduism was banned. And so some sense in which what we're allowed to teach and the way in which that's being closed down and your reflections on that would be welcome as well. So Nandini, do you want to start?
So I just want to sort of take up this comparison between Turkey and India. I wasn't saying that the situation in India is better than Turkey in terms of the actual violence on people, because, you know, in terms of, because India is so large, we have several places where there's huge abuse of human rights violations. In the area that I've been concentrating on, people are being killed on an almost daily basis. As I said, you know, effigies of us are being burnt by the police. One of my co-petitioners, Manish Kunjam, has been attacked by the right wing yesterday. There's a petition. One of the reasons why I couldn't produce a slide with photos was because we were filing immediately for protection for him from the Supreme Court, which is coming up on Friday. So I'm not saying that the situation is not bad, but I think two things. One is the sense in which I think the Turkish academics also expressed complete surprise that a petition could have got this kind of reaction. And as yet, we haven't had either a petition by 1,000 people, academics in India. So in a sense, there hasn't been that kind of academic stance in India, the kind of stance that the Turkish academics have taken to protest about human rights violations. And it would be wonderful if there were 1,000 Indian academics who signed petitions on Kashmir or on Chhattisgarh, but they haven't. So A, there is just much more silence in the university because there is, you know, more broadly. Secondly, that if people were sacked and banned, etc., especially if there were academics from metropolitan central universities, that hasn't happened. You know, that wouldn't, I think that would have been much more shocking in India. I mean, it would have met with a lot more outcry. So at least in, I mean, it's sort of quite shocking that such a thing could happen at all. And I think that sense is being, I mean, I got the sense from Turkish academics that they themselves, you yourselves are shocked at a petition leading to these consequences. So it was just in that sense that I was saying it's not yet that bad, that, which is not to say that, academics, as I said, that people are already silenced, already self-censoring because of, working in private universities, which is not to say that there are not very many brave academics in these regional universities who are taking a stand about, and we don't get to know about them because, it's either it's written in local languages because of that kind of wide linguistic diversity in India. You don't really get to know what people are writing. If something like a major incident happens, like Kalburgi being shot, that's the first time that a lot of people heard about Kalburgi, and here he was this major scholar, which very few of us knew about. So it's actually a shame that we don't know much more about our regional universities. I'm just going to stop at that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I think, I'll take the last one. When you talked about like I said, that these were not only left. I think I did it deliberately because, for a very long time as a student, as well as now, teaching in the same university, I've always seen that, whenever there is a voice about Kashmiris and, human right violation in Kashmir, it's always said that, these are left. These are communist. They're irreligious, immoral people. Don't listen to them. And that is what I wanted to break, that it is not just just by putting a stamp of left, the way, at times, certain channels of the media put it, that ignore them, they are anti-India, they take the taxpayers' money and, they don't give back. But I think, this time what I saw, it's true that, there are left parties which take up and, left-oriented or left-leaning students' union are very vocal. But I think the things which happened, BJP government actually took universities one after the other. I think it was some kind of a systematic strategy. From the Film Technology Institute in Pune, they go to Hyderabad, then to the Tata Institute of Social Sciences and JNU, then Jadavpur, and much before that, when I was teaching in Delhi University, I've seen how, of course in Delhi University it was seen as, semesterization and, a new course coming up known as FYUP. Delhi University Students' Union is essentially broken to it has a clear divide of AVVP, that is Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, which is a BJP student wing, and the NSUI, which is a Congress student wing. So, the presence of left in Delhi University is very less, whereas it was quite a similar case in JNU, where the presence of right was missing. But last year, I was pretty amazed and happily surprised to see lots of my right-wing students actually resigning from AVBP. And, so that's what, so they were not only left-wing, they thought that, what has happened is terrible. So, on moral grounds, on ethical grounds, we cannot side with the government or with the kind of imposition which is coming from these different factions of, supported by the state. I can't say that they were, by the government parties. On, this divide between activists and academics, I think, I won't say that there is no divide. Yes, it is. There exists. And when you join academia, I think one of the best things about academia was for me to join, leaving my civil services job, was academic freedom and autonomy, that you don't have a boss to say, who will dictate. But I think of late, the way, fundings are done, the way your promotions, we have something like a NAC. There is a lot of quantification of your ability of your teaching. How many hours have you taught? How many mentorship? What have you been telling your students? I don't think, academic is that kind of a job where we can have a 9 to 5 and after 5 I shut down and don't think about my students or what happened in my university. It's something I was talking to Roger, even suddenly, where I'm sleeping, I suddenly think, oh, this particular thing will fit nicely into the PhD of that student. So I have to give this reference. So, I just email, read this particular article. We do not have this. It's not one of the most paying jobs. We don't do this job just for money. But yes, money is important. We do have families. So there are many academics who are very scared, to raise their voices. They are scared for their lives. More than their lives, they are scared for the life of their families, their loved ones. I have colleagues whose kids have been telling, don't raise your voice, We are facing, there is, there is trolling in the Facebook and the Twitter. We don't want to do this. And at least we are safe, so to say, in a metropolitan, because Delhi, because it's so huge. people don't know where you exactly live, but I think there is a lot of surveillance. They do know, like, when you are going, when you are coming, and of late, past 3 months, we have had burglary, stealing and theft in JNU, where your computers are stolen. Forget about other things. It's mostly targeted on your computers, on your mobile phones, which are stolen. And and then the university says, look, you never want the police inside the university. You were standing against the government and the administration for letting police in. So we cannot allow. Now you do it. What to do? You don't have police here, so you are going to face it. So I think that's what is happening. So those are my views on it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll return to these themes again and again, just in the spirit of reclaiming the university. So Nandini spoke about a Dalit student who committed suicide in the University of Hyderabad in the south of India. He was part of an Ambedkar study circle. One of his colleagues graduated last week, and he refused to accept his doctorate from the vice-chancellor who had presided over the system which led to the death of his friend and fellow student. Instead, he compelled the vice-chancellor to take a back seat while he took his doctorate from somebody else. It was a very public statement saying that he wasn't privy to what was going on in his institution, and reclaiming that little bit, that's part of the ceremony as a statement of defiance. And so there are examples of people taking back spaces and of raising their voices, and that's the sort of thing we'll return to in the afternoon. But can you join me in thanking the panel for raising these important issues?